Why being triggered is actually an addiction. Ever notice how some people say they want peace, but feel restless when things finally go quiet? No drama, no arguments, no tension, no chaos, just calm. And instead of relief, something feels off. They feel bored, uneasy, disconnected, almost irritated for no clear reason. They reach for their phone even though nothing happened. They replay conversations that already ended. They mentally reopen problems that were resolved, not because there's a new issue, but because something familiar is missing. That feeling isn't random. It isn't a weakness. It isn't a flaw in your personality. It's an addiction. The story we were taught. We've been taught something that sounds mature, but quietly keeps people stuck. We've been taught that being triggered means you're aware, that reacting strongly means you care, that emotional intensity equals truth. So if something upsets you deeply, you assume it must matter deeply. And if you react strongly, you assume you're being authentic. But what if that's backwards? What if being triggered isn't insight but conditioning? What if your nervous system has learned to confuse stimulation with meaning? Because once you see this clearly, modern behavior suddenly makes sense. The outrage culture, the endless arguments, the inability to let things go. The way people stay angry long after the moment has passed. Some people aren't stuck because life keeps hurting them. They're stuck because their nervous system has learned to need the hit. Why intensity feels so convincing. When you're triggered, everything feels urgent. Your thoughts sharpen, your emotions spike, your body tightens, your inner narration gets loud. And because it feels intense, your brain assumes it must be important. But intensity doesn't equal accuracy. A fire alarm is loud. That doesn't mean there's always a fire. Your reaction feels powerful because it's chemically loud, not because it's correct. Your nervous system evolved to treat intensity as information. In real danger, that matters. But when that same system gets applied to everyday life, emotions start masquerading as truth, and triggers become trusted narrators. How small moments become big reactions. Here's where this usually begins. Not with trauma, not with catastrophe, with something small, a tone shift, a delayed response, a facial expression, a comment online, a memory you didn't ask for. Your brain doesn't calmly analyze it. It scans for threats. And that scan is instant, faster than logic, faster than reflection, faster than context. Your nervous system reacts before you've even named the feeling. The chemical takeover. Once the brain detects a threat, the body takes over. Cortisol spikes, adrenaline activates, muscles tense, breath shortens. Your system prepares for impact. You're no longer in the present moment. You're in protection mode. And protection mode doesn't ask, is this true? It asks, how do I defend myself? Then comes the release. You vent, you argue, you spiral, you withdraw. You rehearse the story again and again. Eventually, the pressure discharges. And when it does, you feel relief. Not peace, relief. And your nervous system records that moment. The moment addiction is born. This is the moment most people miss. Your nervous system learns. That reaction helped me regulate. Not logically, chemically. So the loop forms: trigger, reaction, relief, reinforcement. Each time you go through it, the loop strengthens. Less trigger required. Bigger reaction, faster response. This is why people say, I know reacting doesn't help, but I can't stop. It's not a character issue. It's conditioning. Why your brain likes this loop. Here's the uncomfortable truth. This loop gives you more than relief. It gives you energy, focus, direction, meaning. Suddenly, you know who's wrong. You know what side you're on. You know what matters. You know what to fight. Chaos feels clarifying. Peace doesn't do that. Peace doesn't spike chemicals. Peace stabilizes them. And to a dysregulated nervous system, stability feels empty. So when things go quiet, your brain doesn't say, "This is safe." It says, "This is unfamiliar." And unfamiliar feels dangerous. Why peace feels boring at first. This is where people panic. They finally step away from drama. They finally stop engaging. They finally choose calm. And instead of relief, they feel flat, emotionally muted, unmotivated, disconnected. So they assume something is wrong. I should feel happier. I should feel lighter. I should feel more alive. But that flatness isn't failure. It's withdrawal. When you stop feeding your nervous system constant stimulation, it protests, just like any addiction. No spikes, no crashes, no emotional fireworks, just baseline. And baseline feels dull when your system has been trained on extremes. Why people go back to chaos. This part is uncomfortable, but important. Some people don't accidentally fall back into chaos. They choose it. They reopen old wounds. They re-engage with people they said they were done with. They scroll until they're angry. They poke problems that don't need solving. Not because they want pain, but because pain feels familiar. And familiar feels safe to a nervous system that doesn't yet trust calm. When reaction becomes identity. Over time, reacting stops being something you do and becomes who you are. I'm just passionate. I don't tolerate disrespect. I feel deeply. I'm just honest. I call things out. At first, these statements might be true, but eventually they become armor. Because if you stop reacting, who are you? If you're not offended, not outraged, not activated, what's left? For many people, reaction becomes identity. And letting go doesn't just remove stimulation. It threatens the self they built around it. Why people defend their triggers. This is why people get defensive when you suggest calm. Because being triggered gives them moral superiority, belonging, a storyline, a role. It makes them feel relevant. It makes them feel righteous. It makes them feel alive. So when someone suggests regulation, they hear suppression. When someone suggests calm, they hear indifference. When someone suggests responsibility, they hear blame. But what's really being threatened isn't the truth. It's the payoff. The invisible cost of staying reactive. Constant reactivity has consequences. It keeps your nervous system in alert mode, which means everything feels personal. Everything feels heavy. Everything feels urgent. You don't just react to big things. You react to tone, to silence, to inconvenience, to imagined meanings. Your emotional bandwidth shrinks. Your world gets smaller. That's not awareness. That's captivity. Responsibility is not blame. This is where the exit appears. Responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for the feeling. It means taking responsibility for what happens after the feeling. Your first reaction is conditioning. Your second response is choice. You don't suppress the emotion. You interrupt the loop. You feel the spike. You notice the urge. You delay the release. That pause is everything. The pause rewires the system. In that pause, something powerful happens. You realize, I can feel this without obeying it. That realization breaks addiction. Because the brain learns not only from what you do, but from what you don't do. Each time you pause, you teach your nervous system, this isn't a threat. And slowly, the loop weakens. What regulation actually looks like. Regulation doesn't mean becoming numb. It means feeling without spiraling, experiencing without exploding, noticing without obeying. You still feel anger. You still feel hurt. You still feel disappointment. But those feelings no longer hijack you. They inform you, without owning you. What real calm feels like. Real calm isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. It feels neutral, spacious, grounded, clear. At first, it feels boring. But boring is just unfamiliar peace. And unfamiliar peace eventually becomes stability. Then clarity, then power. Emotional adulthood. This is emotional adulthood. Not avoiding feelings, not suppressing reactions, but choosing who you are after the feeling appears. That's freedom. The final truth. If peace feels boring right now, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means your nervous system has been overstimulated for a long time. And freedom doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly. So if you're ready for peace, understand this. At first, it won't excite you. It won't energize you. It won't validate you. It will simply stop hijacking you. And that's how you know. You're no longer addicted. Thank you for watching. This is MindStickz.